Good morning. It's Friday, I believe June the 15th, or close to it, 2012. And I'm doing this off the cuff, as it were, because I've been making a lot of very poor decisions all this week. I should have decided, for instance, to go back to the island where I normally live, and instead, for very weak reasons, I decided not to go, and now the weather, of course, is absolutely perfect. And perhaps my garden has destroyed itself. However, we shall see. My concern and my lack of decisiveness or intelligent decisiveness, I guess, is just a part of the chaos which I see around the world, when common sense and decency seem to have lost their way in the desert of idiocy. The governance of the world has fallen into the hands of criminals. And the problem is with criminals, they don't really have a lot of imagination once they've achieved their domination of the local community. In fact, at that point, they'd all rather become peacemakers. So perhaps the time is now and ready that all the gangsters, having achieved their objectives, finally have to confront the soldier. Because as we see in Egypt, it is always the man with the biggest gun in our competitive world that dominates the lives of the common people. Now, I'm a commoner, and although I carried a gun briefly, learned to use one in the military, I believe who lives by the gun dies by the gun, and that none of us get out of this alive. So I think we should begin not merely to consider death dealing as a means of achieving our objectives, but common sense and reason. Now, the situation I spoke about in about a year ago now, I think, when I offered probably uncalled for advice, or perhaps not well thought through advice, to the Egyptian people, I'd still like to offer it again. Clearly, institutions become corrupted. It's like a machine that doesn't get enough oil, and oil, of course, has always been fluid, and fluidism is a part of the role of money. That is cash money, that is not so much, it's a solid substance that represents credit. Now, what is the alternative? Universal credit, of course, where we just put money on one side and say that was an interesting anachronism. We can live without it. And the Queen, of course, of Great Britain, my homeland, certainly among the richest people in the world, and certainly one of the most controlling figures in the world, is in a unique position at this time of her jubilee to forgive all debt in the world. And of course that includes all mortgage. And we move to a universal family credit system. And in this way, the issues of accountability go from numbers of dollars to logistics. Logistics would be the necessary provision of goods and services. Now, how to achieve that in a universal family credit state is really not very difficult. The assurance aspect of the community, the thoughtfulness and the kindness of a community, and we must distinguish here between the civilian community and the military community. As I opened up my little chat here this morning, the spontaneous chat that I'm doing live to this webcam, was that, of course, the man with the biggest gun and the nuclear weapons, I suppose, has the absolute authority, in a manner of speaking, as do the police, who have more and more weaponry against the commons, I might say, the civilian population. We must begin to distinguish between the honor of the civilian population, which measures up to, as I was mentioning before, the concept of assurance, and that is collective well-being, individual and collective well-being expressed by individuals to individuals in a collective environment where this is the norm, this is the paradigm by which we operate. It used to be, and I understand, that the original purpose of military was the defense of civilians against whatever it was in those days, dragons perhaps, or raiding parties and so on. I left my own country in 1959 under a cloud because my views were so contrary then to Britain getting into bed with the United States, and I'd already written essays at high school which were being passed around the staff room suggesting that the Americans, with their Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola and Bernaysian advertising techniques, would destroy that which was best in the principles of Great Britain. And I don't have copies of that essay, but at the time I think that certainly the staff, many of whom had gone through the Second World War as soldiers, because my secondary school, the men were beginning to come back from war with the experience of war and the futility of war and the madness of a military which had lost its honor and dignity by no longer defending the civilian population but actually murdering them on a grand scale. I left Britain because I thought the United States and Great Britain were entering into a neo-colonial period, and that was contrary to everything that I believed in. I believed after the Second World War we should have been approaching real liberty, and then I found that evil men like Albert Pike is reputed to have been one of them, who preached the idea that unless we were able to control our population, an old Malthusian idea, it's entirely thoughtless and madness and wrong, had been sold to the greedy. And of course the greedy always like more for themselves, so that means to say the less other people there are, then the more it is for them. Well, we have to wake up to the fact that humanity is an experience of the divine, and the divine in each one of us requires that we begin to act with courage and dignity, and that is why I'm calling upon Her Majesty the Queen, in the name of the British people, to declare a jubilee, and that jubilee is the forgiveness of all debt in the world, and by publicly and royally acknowledging the assurance that the common well-being of the people of the Commonwealth, not exclusively those previous colonial assumptions, but all the people of the planet will be freed from the monster of conventional monetarism, and that we enter a new period of understanding. We're all God's children. We are in the surface chemistry between Mother Earth and Father Son, and those are the facts of our reality. Money is a bane. Money is a fraud. Money is the most destructive tool ever allowed on the planet Earth. Let us begin to wake up to the fact that truly we are spirits before we're bodies, and certainly we're bodies and people because we live in a world of love, because we've given up violence, we've given up dirty tricks, we've given up military that is purposefully engaged in extermination of our own species. This is insanity. I call upon Your Majesty to act with dignity and rapidly to end all foreign engagement of the British forces, bring all of the troops back to Great Britain. And I express myself also to President Obama, begin to act and stop being a hypocrite before your time is up. Do what you said you would do, and that is to work for change for the people of the world. Stop this hypocrisy. It's gone on long enough. This is time for a jubilee. This is time for a paradigm shift. Just remember that the Aztec calendar was based around the effect of winter solstice of 2012. Let me just remind the people of the world that we're talking summer solstice here. in the Northern Hemisphere. It's just as simple as that. Thank you very much for your attention. I did this spontaneously. I do it from my heart. I do it from my spirit. And I do it from my love of God. Thank you very much.